Good evening, Cryptid fans. Surprise, we're actually not that late tonight for a change, but anyway, don't worry. I'm sure we'll pay for it sometime, somewhere along the way. Anyway, we got a great show tonight. Got a great guest. I'm sure everybody knows this gentleman. Uh, I'm going to get to learn a lot about him tonight myself. I have seen him in the past, and my understanding is he is a fantastic guest, fantastic book of knowledge, and I am looking forward to hearing everything this man has to say tonight. Chad, glad to see you
Yes,
here. You were a little late getting in here. You're usually the first one backstage, but
usually, but this computer,
glitches.
well, I almost didn't show up because this computer about went out the window.
Yes, I had a brand new microphone show up today and hooked it all up, and it sounded horrible. And it's right back in the box, getting ready to go back to B&H. Maybe
Jerry,
after.
that's like your fourth microphone this year.
No. That's only the second one. Only the second one.
What was the other thing you had to send back to
Oh, that
quit?
box. That
Oh yeah.
box, the audio box it goes into. But anyway, that's not the important stuff. The important stuff's the young fella down here we call Thomas Sewid. Say that properly. And I am just all ears tonight. I'm just going to turn the floor over to him. And guys, by all means, and gals in chat, thank you for being here. The numbers are climbing by the minute here, which is good. And usually they hit up pretty good when you got a good guest. So please, if you got any questions for him, give him some time to speak, and then we'll start asking him questions later on. Please put your questions in the letters so I can catch them easier. So, Thomas, it's good to have you on, my friend, and tell us a little bit about yourself. How long you been doing this crazy Bigfoot thing? And he gave us a tour off while we were backstage, and I thought I had a lot of Bigfoot stuff in my house. I think Thomas takes the cake on that one, buddy. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
His house looks like a Bigfoot museum.
Bigfoot Museum, absolutely. Tell us a little bit about yourself and whatever you went out there and what got you in this crazy thing and what you've been doing.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot for inviting me on the show. I'm coming to you from Forks, Washington, out on the Olympic Peninsula, what we call the upper left corner of the U.S., rainiest city in all of the southern 48 states. Right now, we're in a Pacific Front coming in, another name for a big storm. And last night we're on generators, so if I do disappear, it means we had a landslide or trees coming across power lines and internet lines, and we go to black. But hopefully it doesn't happen. But I'm originally from Vancouver Island, British Columbia, Canada, and it's an hour and a half ferry ride from Port Angeles on the Olympic Peninsula across the Juan de Fuca Strait to southern Vancouver Island, and then you got to drive to the top end, which is about 300 miles north. And that area up there in northern Vancouver Island is a small ferry that takes you to Alert Bay. It's an island, about our 45-minute ferry ride from Vancouver Island, and that's where I was born in 1965. And my father was a Kwakwaka'wakw First Nation or North American Indian. So of all the Indian tribes in North America, the Kwakwaka'wakw and the Lehwata are southern tribe members around central Vancouver Island up to the north end. Our tribe has the closest tie to Sasquatch, which we call Chunahwa. Chunahwa is our highest ranked crest. So like people buying a mansion or wearing a Rolex or driving a Lamborghini or Mercedes Benz, you're proclaiming your wealth and status within society. So for our tribe, when we have our great potlatch celebrations and the chief brings out all of his crests that he has title to and ownership of, he'll always show his Chunahwa mask and fur regalia, and a performer performs on the dirt floor around the central fire with all the posts carved of cedar logs of crest figures of orca, grizzly bear, whale, thunderbird, eagle, you name it. So it's like a spiritual realm when you'll see this wood carved, puckered lip, sleepy eyed Chunahwa with fur regalia performing on the floor. And it's just the chief telling everyone, we hold title, me and my family, to the highest ranked crest. And are what are referred to as totem poles. We actually call them welcoming poles. Some will be Chunahwa with outstretched arms, like in downtown Seattle at Occidental Square. There's a 20-foot welcoming pole of a Chunahwa, female Sasquatch, with outstretched arms, big breasts, puckered lips, sleepy eyes. And then other places like the museums in Seattle and across North America, you'll see giant feast dishes, some of them 20 feet long. You'll see house posts from the interior of our ceremonial and homes called big houses back in the day. And they had Chonacha carved on there. And when you come to our communities and our small cities and our towns, our villages, you'll see Chonacha carvings in the grave burial grounds in memorial totem poles where they're carved at the base, and it signifies that the chief who died, his memorial pole, those crests above the Chunach will tell you a story of who he was, where his family bloodlines came from, if he was a hunter, if he was wealthy, and of course with the Chunach, it tells you right away that that chief and his family were a house of wealth because of that carving. So as a kid growing, back to my earliest memories, it was, family after dinner, come on, we got to go to the Gyuksi, the big house. And we'd drive up the hill, and you'd, in the shadow of the world's tallest totem pole, there's a ceremonial big house in Alert Bay, and you'd go in there for practices, or there's a celebration taking place, or there might be a potlatch going on that you go to. And I would see those Chunach masks and regalia being danced on the floors. And then walking through Alert Bay as a young kid, I was terrified to go by the burial ground by the hospital in the central part of the little town, because there was 5 memorial poles to this day standing with Chunachas at the bottom. And all I kept thinking was, oh, it's getting close to dark. Chunachas are going to come from the bush and grab me, because we were taught that you behave yourself. If you misbehave, you're lazy, you don't do your chores, you don't do your schoolwork, you misbehave, fight, temper tantrums. Chonacha is always watching children, and she's not allowed to touch them. But as soon as you misbehave, Tommy, Chonacha is going to come at night with big hairy arm and reach in to where you're sleeping and grab you, pull you out, and that's where she's going to put you in her basket on her back or a sack. But she'll rub spruce tree sap like tar into your eyes so you're blind, and she's going to carry you deep up the forest, up the mountain, deep, far away to her invisible home. That's why we can't find Sasquatch, Chunacha, and that's where she'll boil the misbehaving children up and eat them. So you behave yourself. So all my life, I was, right from childhood, I was immersed in this culture and heritage that holds the Sasquatch as the highest ranked crest and in high regard. And it was our boogeyman. And everywhere I went, I'd see carvings to this day. Even Seattle, you go to the art museum downtown, you go to the Burke Museum at the University of Washington, and you go downtown to Occidental Square, you go down to the art galleries, there's Sasquatch carvings, mainly of Kwakwaka'wakw tribe artists all over the place, and others, but mainly the Kwakwaka'wakw, my tribe. So it was always around me. And then being born into a commercial fishing family, summer holidays, we didn't have them. We didn't believe in child labor, because you went to work when you were old enough to walk and stand on a deck, and you commercial salmon fished on commercial boats. And I was born into a seine boat family. So we had the big nets, the big boats, 5 crewmen or 6. And there I was, 10 years old, working full crew share on these boats. And when I became a teenager and I moved up to my uncle's boat that would ply the entire British Columbia coast, I would go to isolated communities where few people would ever get to, like Clem 2, where Les Stroud went with his first Bigfoot show, Port Eliza, Queen Charlotte Islands, the list goes on. And of course, what do? You sit on deck, have coffee or pop, and you BS. You talk to the locals. They come down to the dock to find out, Moccasin Telegraph, what's going on in the outside world. And I would always take that time to say, hey, what do you know about Sasquatch, Bigfoot? And they would tell me. And it was amazing to find out that they were having interactions and encounters, hearing them, smelling them, having fish taken from their smokehouses in these isolated communities. And all the tribes that I met had names for them. And then, of course, 12, 13 years old, living in the city in Vancouver, British Columbia, we all go to the Saturday matinee and watch Unsolved Mysteries. Leonard Nimoy from Star Trek, Spock, narrating. And I was introduced to the Patty film and other encounters brought to life on screen about Bigfoot, Sasquatch. I heard names like Bob Gimlin, Roger Patterson, Mr. Green, Renee the Hinden, and the list goes on. And that's when I was like, wow, I got to find out more about what they call Bigfoot, because we call it Chunakwa. And I would go to the museum or to the libraries and learn even more. And then lo and behold, me and my dad are on Vancouver Island in the summer, driving up the highway north of Campbell River, the last city at the edge of the frontier. And we're in the sticks. We come down a hill and we know the highway. There's a metal guardrail on the left side lane against the bank, a cement garbage can with a 1-2 vehicle pullover. And there's what I thought was a hippie at nighttime sitting on the metal guardrail by the garbage can. But all of a sudden it put its left arm down and it sprung with its right arm swaying, it's going over its head. You could see the hair, you could see all over its body, the long hair on its shoulders and the side of its rib cage, the crack of his ass, the soles of his feet. And my dad swerves, and all of a sudden he goes, "Oh, we just saw a Chunakwa, a Bigfoot, a Sasquatch." And boy, I was like in awe. Now I was hooked. And that's how I got involved with the whole Sasquatch interest, I guess you could say, in my life.
You brought up Leonard Nimoy's name back when I was younger. He used to love his weekly show that he narrated called In Search Of.
Yeah.
He had some Bigfoot episodes every now and then. That was a really good show to learn from. UFOs.
Yeah, I'm too young to remember that.
Yeah, that was long before your time, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm 36, so that was a little that's a little out of my.
Yeah. And then in my late teens, early 20s, I got a real interest in what we call bush. And, living in northeastern Vancouver Island, my tribal territories are offshore in the mouth of Knights Inlet, and it's called the Broughton Archipelago. It's a cluster of probably over 1,000 or 1,500 islands, right, ranging from the size of a couch right up to big, huge ones that take you 3 days to walk across. But, we go out there fishing and clam digging, and most clam tides are at night. And, we'd anchor the boats out, go ashore at night during the big low tide, start digging clams, and you all of a sudden hear the trees break, tree being pushed down, things thrown at you, the bad smell, the whoops and chatters. And being the young one in the group, sometimes they would look at me and go, "Take the cockles, the choli." In our language, choli means cockles. It's a type of clam, which is the favorite food of the Sasquatch, the Bukwus, Junakwa, and Bukwus, the little people. But anyway, you'd have to grab an armload of these cockles, this delicacy to us even, and walk that beach of maybe 60 to 100 yards up to the tree line, which is just ink black. And you'd hear them and smell them, and you'd be throwing the cockles into the bush as a gift to the Junakwa. And you turn around after you threw the last one, and I bet if you measured my footprints, it'd be 20, 30 feet apart, because I was just giving her all I could to get back to the diggers down below, because it's so scary walking up to the bush where the Junakwa, the Sasquatches are. And as I got older, then it was my turn to say, "Hey, you're the youngest one. You heard that tree break, that whoop. You take that basket of cockles and bring them up to the bush line, throw them to the Junakwa, the Sasquatch." And kid would look at me, "You're not serious." I'm like, "I'm dead serious. You do it, otherwise I'm going to pop you upside the head. Do what I told you. You respect the Sasquatch. You always respect the Junakwa." And they'd run up and come back whimpering and crying and, all scared. But that's, how we interacted with them. They were always out there sometimes. And when you came across them, if you heard a tree knock, bang, 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 that was the Junakwa telling you, "Stop, turn around. Me and my Sasquatch family are here right now." And you heed the warning. You make a 180 and you go back where you came from. You never, ever think of harming them, hunting them, trapping them, killing them. That is bad, bad karma if you ever do that. And we have legends about that. And we also have strict law. You always respect the Sasquatch. So they're always around me. And then in my 20s, I spent more time in bush. I was a native watchman for my abandoned native village, living out there by myself most times in the spring, summer, and early fall when I wasn't commercial fishing in the summer. And I'd wake up in the middle of the night. I'd smell them, hear them, harvesting the plums or the apples or the other fruit that was growing in the abandoned native village with houses that were occupied that were all, windows smashed, no doors. Here I am in a 3-story, my grandfather's old house with no windows, no doors. And sleeping on a metal cot with a sleeping bag and a foamy. And, I'd hear them outside. And I didn't, I was just, whatever, just go to sleep. Don't need to hear it. Put my fingers in my ear. La, la, la. I don't hear that. I'm going to sleep. But you knew they're there. And then in the early 1990s, I was a captain of a commercial fish boat for salmon. Me and my girlfriend and my two crewmen, we went to that village island, the abandoned native village, and we anchored out in front of my cabin that I'd built a few years before. It was actually a 26-foot trailer with a 10 by 10 addition we built. We anchored out maybe 80, 60 yards off the shore. We're on the boat. We pulled a bunch of crab traps, and that evening as it got dark, we're cooking crab knuckles on hatch covers out on deck with a Coleman stove. Me and Dean, my crewman, and my girlfriend Jojo and my engineer Trevor were in the galley playing cards and listening to a boombox. And you heard Trevor, Jojo, let me bum a cigarette off you. She's giving him shit. You just had $1,000 on the weekend. What'd you do? Blow it all on partying and didn't buy any cigarettes for this fishing trip? Here, take one. And then at the same time he was lighting up a cigarette, you could hear the lighter and everything. The galley door was open and portal. All of a sudden you just heard this bang, something hitting my aluminum sided trailer on the beach. I thought right away it must be one of my metal kerosene cans empty under the trailer that contracted with the cool of the evening. And I'm thinking, no, I removed those last year. There's no kerosene cans there in my garage back home. And then me and Dean both just snapped our heads up and looked. Walking in front of the trailer were two erect, huge, bipedal somethings. And, I'm thinking right away, that trailer's got to be 9 feet high. And that big one is less than a foot lower than the side of that trailer. And the other one behind it, a little shorter, but still big. And then all of a sudden you heard that whistle, chirp, warble. And that Wallace Yachbala, that big stink, just, it's gagging. I guess they let go with their scent glands in their armpits. And they kind of disappeared into the shrub trees and the grasses. And I'm like, Dean, I said, you seen that? He goes, yeah. And I went in the galley. I said, Jojo, turn that boombox out. And you guys better get on deck. I think we got two tuna, a Sasquatch on the beach. We just heard and smelled them and saw them walk by the trailer. So Jojo and Trevor come out on deck. And Trevor puts his right foot on the bulwarks, the side of the rail. He's got his half-smoked cigarette going, and he's like smelling, and he's like, the hell is that, Tom? And then all of a sudden, another warbling chirp, but really deep tone from, I guess, the big male erupted. And Trevor looked at me, his eyes were just bug-eyed. He goes, what the F was that, Tom? I said, I think that's the one that you saw last year. Because he spooked one the year before when we came to shut the camp down in October. And he's like, it's Sasquatch. You just see Trevor flick his half cigarette overboard that he just mooched off my girlfriend, and in the galley, down the engine room stairs, hear the bulkhead door to the forecastle where the crew sleeps down in the bow. Big steel one slam shut. And that was the last we saw of Trevor. He didn't want anything to do with those Sasquatches. But we ended up turning the spotlight on, and we had a big male and a big female. The female on the beach, the big male up above the high tide mark in grass that was in first week of October, probably about 5 feet tall. And he just dropped on his knees and put his arm in front of his face where he'd see in the spotlight, 2 eye reflections, 1 eye, 1.5 eye, 2 eyes as he's breathing and moving. And they were almost orange blood red when we first put the spotlight on. And after a few minutes, maybe 10 minutes, they started to tone down to an orange, then to a yellowish green, and then to a yellowish. And the female, you can see the yellowish green eye under her right arm as she's in a fetal position with her butt facing us and her head on the beach, but she's looking under her right armpit at the spotlight. We could see that 1 eye. And we tried everything. Right away, I'm like, Jojo, get the camera. She found a 35 millimeter camera with the built-in flash. I went to take a picture. And of course, those cameras from the old days, they button doesn't click. So I opened it up, no film. You hear Jojo ripping my boat apart, drawers, cupboards, you name it, looking for film. She never did find any, so we didn't have a camera. And then after that, I'm like, go grab some eggs and apples and potatoes. We'll throw it towards them, splashing in the water to try to get them to move. They would not move, throwing everything at them, yelling at them. We're jumping up and down, flashing the spotlight around, jiggling it. They wouldn't move. And I'm thinking, okay, it's been about 20, 25 minutes. I've had that spotlight on. My motor's not running. My boat was built in 1927. It's a company boat. I don't know the last time it had new D-cell batteries. And if my batteries go down and they swim out to the boat and I can't start the motor, we're pooched. And so I shut the spotlight off and we're standing outside now. And you could hear them stand up, move through the grass and the scrub, and then enter the wall of hemlock, cedar, spruce trees in the forest. And they were about 5, 6 inches in diameter, second growth. And you could hear them crack, crunch, crunch. And then the sound of a big, rotten, dead tree being pushed over and crashed on the forest floor. And they were gone. And we're just like, wow, that was amazing. That actually took place. We saw 2 Sasquatches in the spotlight. So Jojo goes to bed. Trevor's downstairs hiding in his bunk. Me and Dean go out on deck, and we're out there for, I guess, over an hour when we heard this blue heron, like a big stork crane bird, get spooked. It was sleeping on the beach, and it comes flying out of the second bay, that part of it, and flies by the boat in the moonlight, flat calm, no rain, no hardly any clouds, moon's beaming down, you can see pretty good. And then all of a sudden you could hear something walking across that second bay because it was half tide. It was exposed, and we put the spotlight on again. All we got was eye shine, but it was kind of misty, and this big bipedal creature run to the left. And we shut the spotlight off, and we're sitting there, and our eyes get adjusted to the moonlight again in the darkness, and you just see this big head and shoulders pop up above rock outcropping. And I'm just like, damn, that thing's big. And when I met Dr. John Bindernagel, the famous Sasquatch professor, a week later, when he asked me how big was it when it peaked up over that rock, I said it was like a 45-gallon drum and a half. That's how wide the shoulders were, with this big head on there. And all of a sudden it disappeared, and then you could hear it going through the bush. And then you kind of look, and it was really shadowy by the trees at the top of the rock beach at height above the high tide mark where the logs are. And all of a sudden you see something creeping along the side of the beach. And Dean goes, "What the F is that?" And that thing stood up and went like that. And you could see as it stood up, the long hair hanging off his arms, like shoulders and bicep area. And he just boom, boom, boom. And I went running through the galley into the pilot house, hit the spotlight, spun the handle. And that's when you see him lift his right hand up, grab an alder tree, pull it, step up off the beach into the bush, turn and look at the boat, and just give us that grimace, like, you asshole look. And he just crash into the forest. He stopped, and he's walking through what we call slallies, bushes. They sound like someone with a plastic tarp. That's what it sounds like when you walk through slough in the Pacific Northwest. He stopped walking, deep whistle chirp, and then you heard the high-pitched whistle chirp further up the forest, and it was female. And then you hear them both crunching and crashing through the slough, join each other, and turn to the west and walk into the forest where we couldn't hear them no more. So we had an experience of over an hour and a half encounter with those 2 Sasquatches. And that was, my first real close, long encounter. And, that's what really catapulted me to, I got to find out more about these things. And what better way but to get deeper into bush. And that's when my life opened up to being a grizzly bear hunting guide, living out in the forest, disappearing into the mountains and alpines for weeks on end, sometime even a few months. And I would walk with them, Couldn't see them on most occasions, but I knew they're around me, see their tracks, see their tree structures, hear them at night. And that's when I started to investigate further with other Indian tribes, because I realized that we Indians, when someone shoves a camera in our face, not me, because I've always been around cameras and filming different things. When I was a hunting guide for bears, we were doing grizzly bear and black bear hunting videos. Commercial sports fishing, we're doing sports fishing documentaries and shows. And then when I became an eco-tourist, native watchman, working with the sea kayak companies and tour boats and everything. And then, now, my wife's working right there in front of me, and she does editing for our own, videography work about Sasquatch. And, but I found out that most Indians zip ug Indian when the camera's rolling. Oh, do you have Sasquatches in your territories? Yep. Have you seen a Sasquatch? Maybe. What do you know about Sasquatch? They're big. And that's usually what we get with the North American Indians in camera. And then, of course, you get the really chatty ones. And they're, Sabe, great Sasquatch from the forest, the guardian of Mother Earth's forest. Oh, we must hold hands, put feather on the ground, and all go, Hollywood bloody concrete Indians so full of BS, their eyes are brown. And that's when I made the choice. I'm like, maybe I should get into these Sasquatch shows, which I did. And one of my friends, my investigating friends from Minnesota, Andre, we call him our son. But anyway, he sent me a video clip from YouTube. He found from 1991, and I'm being interviewed on a Sasquatch documentary. And I'm looking at it going, geez, I wish I had that thick black hair still. Here I am, a young pup talking about Sasquatch by a wood stove in my buddy's cabin. And so, I was always part of it. And then I met Peggy in the 90s, and we're friends until 2008, where my marriage went sideways. Hers did too. And then her and I got together, and we've been together ever since 2008. But I was feral. I was wild because I'd been living so much in the bush and forest that I'd come to Kent, Washington, south of Seattle, and I'd be there for maybe a week, and she'd see me looking at Mount Rainier, known as Tahoma, and the language of the natives there, or the trees. And she'd just go home, go back to Vancouver Island, go back to your bush world. I'll be here when you get back. So I'd come back a month later or 2 months later and so forth, and spend a little bit more time. And then around 2014, she introduced me, because I could stay longer now. I was sort of getting a little bit less feral. She introduced me to remote control and Finding Bigfoot. I didn't know Finding Bigfoot was out there in other shows. And she come home from work and hear me arguing with Finding Bigfoot. You don't know jack shit about Sasquatch. Now you're doing tree knocking. Oh yeah, BFRO, Bang Forest Research Organization. You ain't knowing bugger all about Bigfoot. And she asked me if you believe in Bigfoot, and I'm like, yeah. And she thought I was ape shit crazy when I said that.
Stuck in my place.
Yeah, and I'm stuck in her place in Kent, Washington, and I believe in Sasquatch. But she took the high road and started asking me more and more, and that's when I enlightened her about my knowledge about it and encounters. Now she performs on conference stages with the blessing of my family's two chiefs, one of them being my father, but he passed 2 years ago, that she can wear our mask and our regalia and perform our Junach regalia on stage at all the Sasquatch conferences and in front of cameras. So we've both come a long way. We're still on this journey, and we just we're basically, what I'm doing is educating, because things like Map Moneymaker and BFRO, Bigfoot Research Organization, I call it Bang Forest Research Organization. That's why I never saw a Sasquatch in 14 seasons, because they're always banging on trees, telling the Sasquatch, like they tell us when they bang trees, stop, turn around, go back where you came from. Well, remember what I said about respecting Sasquatch. So when you go in the forest and you go into their home and you bang on a tree with a tree knocker, how disrespectful to tell a Sasquatch in their home to stop, turn around, and go somewhere else. We're the intrusive one and the disrespectful one. One guy phoned me and he said, you always going on podcasts and video casts, and telling people never to tree knock. It's disrespectful. He goes, I used to be able to go to Sasquatch conference circuit and sell my tree knockers I make on a lathe, and I'd make big money, support my family. Now no one buys them. I said, well, you should bend over and put that tree knocker where it belongs. I said, because they're disrespectful. And, or better yet, pile them up in your backyard and get your family to gather around it and light a fire. At least you get some good out of those disrespectful chunks of wood. And, that's the way I take the stand, because what I'm doing is I'm educating people. And I wrote chance encounters and investigating guideline recommendations for Sasquatch. I can email it to anyone who wants it. And what it is all my years of being an eco-tourist operator, doing grizzly bear tours, whale watch tours, we have guidelines. You can't get within 300 yards or meters of a whale with a boat. You can't cross in front of them. You can't chase them. And if you do all of a sudden have one pop up around you, you pull it in neutral and shut the motor off. It's so you don't harm or disrespect or disturb their feeding or sleeping or traveling. And with grizzly bears, the same thing. You go in chain link fence towers, so you don't have a bad reaction with the grizzly bears that are feeding on the rivers. That's grizzly bear viewing. Back in the day, we used to stand on the riverbank, drive up on a pickup truck, put our clients on the riverbank, and grizzly bears are walking by us. I'm sitting there with a 12 gauge, ready to let rip if I have to protect my clients. But then we learned that we have to evolve grizzly bear tours so we're more respectful. We're not going to have that negative interaction and kill one. And the same thing with Sasquatches. We have to be respectful of them. Like the native tribes, over 1,200 in North America, aka Sasquatch Island, North America. You're standing on it when you hear Sasquatch Island, which I wear on my jacket and hat and everything. It's my Facebook group, my website, my YouTube channel. Sasquatch Islands is out there to educate that, don't do like mountain monsters. Wear your camo, grab your shotguns and rifles, contrive and bullshit us that you actually got close to Sasquatch. Well, number one, you wear camo, you have a gun, you ain't getting anywhere near a Sasquatch in most cases. They're too damn smart. They're humans of the night. They are the North American, Central America, and South American indigenous people prior to contacts, Adam and Eve. We all once were Sasquatches in the Americas. And all of a sudden, one of them grabbed two rocks and clicked them together and said, oh, fire. Oh, that's warm. Oh, maybe I'll take my meat and cook it. Ooh, smells good, tastes good. And some other Sasquatch came over and throttled them upside the head with a big slap. You put those rocks down, you put that fire out. We have laws, very strict laws. We don't use fire. We don't use tools. We don't have weapons. And we don't live in permanent shelters or have clothing. We're in harmony and balance with nature and the animal kingdom. And some of those Sasquatches said, middle finger to you, we are going and doing our own thing, and broke away from the clan and started to use fire. And after thousands of years and generations of evolution, those fire-using Sasquatches had heat, shelter, clothing, tools, weapons, envy, greed, hate, warfare. And the other original Sasquatches said, those ones are the stupid bipedals. We will stay clear of them and adhere to our ancient codes and laws, and we will not use modern stuff. And that's why when the non-native Indian came to North America and took photographs of the Indians in North America, Canada, and the US, and even Central and South America, we were very Toothlam in those black and white photographs of the mid-1800s. We were very blackface. And that's why Sasquatch is referred to being very Toothlam, blackface, because they have the original skin. We used to have it, but me, I tell people out here in the Olympic Peninsula, us Indians don't tan out here. We rust. That's where I get my color from. But it's toned right down from what it would have been. My sister's brown as the ace and almost black as the ace of spades in the summer because she's got more Indian gene in her than me. I got, looks like a little bit of the Scotch and Irish gene in me from my ancestors. So I've been toned down as most Indians have. But when you go to those isolated Indian communities in British Columbia, Alaska, Northwest Territories, Canada, you'll see the Choslam, the Black Indians. And those are the ones that still have that, show you that where we came from. We evolved from Sasquatch. So a lot of people ask me, what is Sasquatch? I said, our Adam and Eve. They're the original human. That's where we evolved to become the smaller, hairless, stupider bipedal creature.
Yeah. Jerry, you got any questions while we're at a breaking point here?
No way. I ain't taking the floor away from that man. Let him run.
Honest, I have to say, what you were saying about that's what I always thought about them.
Yeah. No, it's, you got to remember, I've interviewed hundreds, not over 2,000 people to get to the, I guess you could say, how I look at Sasquatch. I accept them for what they are. I understand a lot more than most people because I lived out in bush for so long. You're sleeping in a hammock, got your 12 gauge bouncing Betty under your arm, got your 375 H&H in the left side, got your knife on your side. You're in a hammock with a tarp over you. I never slept in a tent until Peggy introduced me to one in 2008 when we first got together. I'd never slept in a tent. Why are you going to sleep in something where you can't see, smell, or hear or shoot? So that's why I slept out in the open or with a tarp wrapped around me or on a hammock. And, you'd wake up and you'd look at the moon, stars, and go, okay, I've been sleeping for probably 5 hours. I'm after midnight, late in the night. What woke me up? Wet your two fingers, shove them in your nose, get your nose hairs wet. Now you can absorb smell like an animal. That's being a bushman. Took me years to learn that. And now you can smell, and all of a sudden you smell that tang of, uh-oh, that's a Sasquatch. And you'd hear them. They always will be downwind to you. And you'd hear them checking you out. They got nocturnal vision. They're looking at you. You know you're being watched. And then you just, hello, I don't know who you are, Sasquatch. And because I spoke native Indian to them, most times they wouldn't say anything, but sometimes you'd hear a blah, 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 and they just move off. Respect. I didn't pull my gun out and aim it at them or make a warning shot. I just laid there and acknowledged that I know you're there, Sasquatch. And they just move off.
Steamboat has something here. It's when I hear mine speak the first time, it said, we were not here first.
Oh, shit. What's that thing is mind speak with Sasquatches? I've had over 30 encounters, close encounters of the hairy kind with Sasquatches. And I'm very firm and adamant about that. I have never had mind speak, orb turning, portal jumping, cloaking, running up or down ladders in and out of UFOs. Never has taken place. And the reason why? Because when people get close to a Sasquatch, they get so shit scared. It's such a freaky moment to see your first Sasquatch that the mental Band-Aid kicks in, like someone who's been in a plane crash or a bad trauma, a rape, a sodomization. You don't hear them talking about that all the time. And if they do, they might cover it up because that's a mental Band-Aid, nature's way taking care of your trauma. So when people have that first encounter of the hairy kind, it turned into an orb. Seriously, it cloaked. It jumped through a porthole and everything went staticky. It ran up a ladder and took off in a UFO. It mind spoke to me. BS.
If it wasn't that mind speaking to him, what was it?
Imagination, mental Band-Aid. That's how it deals with trauma. I don't believe, I've been around them so much and I've asked so many Indians the same thing. And they're all just shake their heads. Those silly white people, they don't know what they're talking about. No offense, but you guys want the goods from an Indian bushman, you're gonna get it.
That's why we're talking to you, man. That's why. Have you ever really felt threatened by them in any?
Hell yeah. We've been back to back with guns at the ready, man. Things flying. I'm gonna go pick some chanterelle mushrooms. No, they're not hallucinogenic. They're just really good eating. So I went out in end of September after some rain and I pulled up to Crease Island and parked my 18.5-foot aluminum Gregor boat and tied it up. And I tide was rising, so I didn't have to worry about it drying up. And I walked into the bush and I'm like, yoo-hoo, Chanterelle City. I'm picking away, and I got up kind of high and then over the little rise, maybe elevated maybe 75 feet on that. Because, island's probably 3/4 mile long by 1/2 mile wide. And as I'm picking away, all of a sudden it just stopped. Just bang. Lick my fingers, shove it up my nose, absorb the smell and go, uh-oh, that's a Sasquatch. Okay, he's upwind of me. There actually is no breeze. I'm trying to test it. It's summertime, so it should be northwest breeze. And I'm looking to my northwest compass points, and all of a sudden I just hear this boom, 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 palm against tree. And I'm like, okay, time to get out of here. So I just turn, I start walking back down up over the rise. And as I get to the crest of the rise, rotten hemlock, you can hear this, I guess, fallen, rotten, dead hemlock get broken. Here's crack. And all of a sudden, whoop, 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 smash hits a tree up above me, and shrapnel hits me. And I'm like, okay, now it's running time. And I'm running down the backside, and there's exploding rotten hemlock trunks being thrown at the trees, and not at me. Otherwise, because the Sasquatch wants to throw something at you and hit you. What we can do with a 22 iron sight single shot rifle, a Sasquatch can do with a rock. So if they want to pop a bird, a squirrel, a raccoon, a deer, an elk, like, oh, they're over there by the TV, you'll see some round rocks in the first shelf. Those are called killer stones that I've collected through the years. They're round imported rocks from the beaches and rivers and streams into the forests of my territories, where they sit, where there's a junction of animal trails that in a prevailing southeast winter wind, like now, fall or early spring, or the late spring, summer, early fall, northwest prevailing area, on the downwind spot, elevated usually, where you're going to go with your rifle to set up for an animal coming when it's windy, so they can't hear you or smell you. Well, then you shoot it. Well, when I get up into these prime hunting positions, oh, look, there's 1 or 2 round killing stones, the size of a baseball, a softball, maybe a little bigger. And on the trail or where you're hunting that there's elk and deer and bear and cougar and wolf and others. Well, you'll see what they're hunting by the size of the rock. And in most cases out in the islands, it's always fist size. They're going after deer. Throw that rock like we throw a 22 bullet with a squeeze of finger, cave in that head, stove in the rib cage, jump on the injured animal, grab its bottom jaw, and snap it. Now, we're doing investigating constantly, and that's one of the big things you'll find that's pretty much the pattern for harvested animals, other than hogs, what I'm finding. But for deer, elk, moose, llamas, because a friend of mine had his llama taken out of his yard in Vancouver Island, you'll find the carcass, the bottom jaw's been busted. And can you imagine the trauma and the instant shock and the collapse of a quadruped when its jaw is grabbed by a Sasquatch and snapped? Then now they've slowed it down, don't have to worry about hoof or horn. And now they can just grab the neck and twist it and snap. That's how a Sasquatch harvests their food.
Wow.
Ouch.
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 How did you, let me ask you a question. How did you feel the first you heard about it all as you were growing up and everything, these creatures? How did you feel when you actually saw your first one? How was your emotion towards that?
They exist.
Yeah.
The story of Tunacha is not a myth or a legend. And that was a different time. Yeah. So one of my big encounters, Peggy just reminded me, was I had my 18.5-foot Gregor, and that was after we saw the Sasquatches at my trailer cabin on Village Island. Must have been a couple years later. I wasn't staying in the trailer no more by myself because I had too much activity with Sasquatch. But I'd go there, to pick berries and get cockles, that type of shellfish. So remember, wherever there's abundant cockles in a clam beach, they're not just at every clam beach. There might be 1 or 2 to every 300 pounds of butter clams you dig. But on a good cockle beach, you rake it because they're just under the surface and on surface, and they come up like potatoes. And that's what native anchorage on Village Island was like, where my trailer used to be. So I grabbed my Gregor and I'm like, hey, geez, got another hour before dark. And tide's just low water rising, big low tide. I'm going to go in there and get some cockles to eat. So I got there, I had my hip boots on, rolled them up to hip level, jumped off the speedboat with the motor lifted. Now I'm only drawn, maybe with me not in the boat, about 2-3 inches of water for the speedboat. Tie the bow line to my waist, and I'm walking in the shallow water with eelgrass flattened because the water is only about maybe 4-6 inches deep. And I'm bending down, picking cockles up, putting them on the bow deck of my speedboat. And then all of a sudden, I heard something, smelled something, and I looked to my right, and I was upwind, so the thing on the beach smelled me. That's probably why I heard it. And I saw the longest legged black bear in my life. 4.5, 5 hours later, I woke up in pitch darkness with my hip boots on, my shorts, my muscle shirt, tank top, and freezing bloody cold because it's dark and foggy. And I'm lying in my speedboat and I can smell the smell of bull kelp. And I'm like getting my bearings, like, what the hell? I was picking cockles. Oh, the cockles are still there all over my deck because I took off with my speedboat, I guess, and they've rolled off. And I look over and I see one of my sidelines going over the side of the boat. So I look over and there's a big forest of bull kelp. They attach themselves to a rock underwater, grow up with a bulbous head with big fronds. And so I'm tied up to one because it's, I don't have an anchor and it's now my anchor. And I'm thinking, how the hell did I get here? The hell did I do? Where am I? So I untie the rope and I pull away from the kelp and put my motor down because I had oars on there. And I put my motor on and I'm going slow on a bearing because in my area, you always take the north bearing because you're going to hit a rock island and you'll be on the south side where you usually travel in the channels and you should be able to see something on land and that tells you roughly where you are. So I'm going to see the beach. And I follow in the beach slow, got my sounder on so I don't hit my prop. And I'm using my flashlight looking at the beach. And I'm like, don't recognize any of the driftwood and trees. And then all of a sudden, there's this big rotten spruce stump. Looks like a J sticking out. And I'm, oh, geez, I know exactly where I am. Alter my course to east by this. And I'm in Indian Channel. Just get out to where it's about 40 fathom, start following it. It'll come up to about 16 fathom. I'm right outside my float house. I had a float house back then. And so I did that compass course, watching my sounder for my positioning, and I'm not going to bottom out in the misty fog, darkness. As I'm going along, I get to the shallow mountain peak underwater that I fish caught on. I'm like, yeah, just outside my breakwater. And I put my flashlight on and I turn it off. And then all of a sudden I can see this amber flash. I had a solar powered amber. I still have it at Kent, Washington on our fence, but it's a navigation beacon, a warning. And I had it on my dock. And I'm like, oh, good. There's my dock. Pull up, tie my speedboat up, go in my float house, crawl in the bed, warm up because I'm freezing, even though it was, September. And then I get up in the morning, I'm having my coffee. I'm like, what the hell happened last night? That was roughly around 7:30, 8 o'clock when I was picking cockles. I saw the longest legged black bear in my life. And then the next thing you know, I woke up in that kelp patch tied to it. The mental band-aid. And people always tell me, go get hypnotized. I'm like, you remember, I used to hunt humans that owed debt back in the day. I said, I got so many skeletons in my closet. I don't want no one recording it and blackmailing me. I ain't getting hypnotized. So we'll leave it at that. Something happened in that 4.5 to 5.5 hour period. But something was so traumatic that my mental band-aid to this day blocks me from what happened. I suspect it was a Sasquatch. I suspect that it was pissed off at me for picking his cockles because he came there on the optimum tide like me. And I got the hell out of there after maybe he threw something at me. I don't know.
Have you ever thought about maybe being, I know it sounds crazy to a lot of people, about being hypnotized, maybe to find out that missing time?
I just told you why I wouldn't. I got skeletons in my closet. No one's recording that and blackmailing me.
Gotcha. Understand 100% on that one.
How
I
about
remember
bones?
I've
Did you ever come
been an
across a
Indian.
boneyard? You didn't hear me. That's okay.
What was that? You broke up.
I'm sorry. Have you ever come across any bones, that may reflect to a passing of Sasquatch or anything?
So I belong to the Hamatsa Society of the Kwakwaka'wakw. We're the highest ranked tier position just beneath our clan territorial hereditary chieftains. So we're very high rank. We still are in a secret society. You can Google Hamatsa, Hamasta, and it'll be translated to human flesh eaters, the cannibals. So I belong to the Cannibal Society. We haven't had a good barbecue since the early 1900s, but I joke about it. We actually have a very strict society. It's secretive to this day. But I have been told things regarding that question, but I am sworn to secrecy. And that's all I'll say on that.
I got another question. Have you ever moved? Well, somebody asked this in chat. Have you ever moved towards a Squatch?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Lots of times. Respectfully, like I was in Omaha Indian Reserve in Nebraska. It's on like Donkey Kong down there. And I met a Omaha tribal person, Lucas White. And I spent probably close to 2 weeks with him. And Peggy and I have flown him out here to the Pacific Northwest and gone investigating with him. Because when I met him, investigated a night with him, we had a FLIR that Peggy had put in my suitcase that you attach to your cell phone. And no offense, but me and Lucas, once we charged it up and used it and saw 2 deer at 220 yards, we just looked at each other bug-eyed and went, "White man's magic. It turned the darkness into daylight." And off we went in the pickup truck investigating. And we got 16 recorded FLIR heat sigs. At one point, we had one that was on the side of a road where 2 guys were in the headlights cutting up with a chainsaw firewood. They later on would find out they were getting firewood to go down to the Missouri River to fish catfish that night because we went and seen them with their fire. But anyway, we were up and down this road because there was a little bit of traffic for the first few minutes. And I picked up that heat sig. So we turned around, came back, and now went past the heat sig, confirmed it's still there, looking at the 2 guys cutting wood about 40 yards away across the road, turned around and came back. And we're right on the side of the road with the grass, maybe 20 feet, and then the wall of scrub and bushes. And this big heat sig in there that we're changing the different settings on the FLIR and recording it. And we're standing by the passenger side door of the pickup truck. And I go to Lucas, what would happen if we ran at it and tried to videotape it, get the flashlight on it with the cell phones and that? He goes, well, 1 of 2 things. It's going to tree snap, turn and run, or it's going to tree snap, swing and stand its ground. And I'm like, I'm game. 3, 2, 1 count. Okay. 3, 2, 1. And we ran at it. Sure enough, as we got about 6 feet from the wall of bush and he's inside of that, crack, boom, 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 crashing as he ran away. And me and Lucas laughing away about it. And I said, you ever do that before, Lucas? He goes, no, don't want to do that again either. He goes, but we had to try because we're investigating. So when I returned from Omaha Indian Reserve, I wrote Dr. Jeff Meldrum, Dr. John Bindernagel, Les Stroud, and someone else. I won't name him because I can't stand the idiot. But anyway, he's one of the Sasquatch performers. But anyway, I wrote four of them. And the title of my email was, I Have Found Tarzan. Because Lucas grew up with the Sitonga, the Omaha word for Sasquatch, which translates to meaning keeper of the medicine. As a young boy, he ran away from social services and the police in and around the bushes of Mason, Nebraska, the Indian Reserve town. And he did that every year from March until October when the colds came. And when the colds came, he walked in the town, got apprehended by the police, brought to social services, went to non-Indian foster care outside the Indian Reserve, did what is asked of him and told of him. In March, when it warmed up, stole money and blankets from his foster family and food and disappeared in and around Macy and lived in the forest. until he was 18, released from social services. So he lived, and I asked him, and he's told me quite a bit. He was watched and raised by the Sasquatches while he was out there. So he's a very important investigator of Sasquatch Island. I actually came across a couple cameras this morning when I was in my garage that I got to mail him. They're 35 millimeter wind up cameras without flash, which means no metal and no batteries. He's trying to get the Diane Fossey, Jane Goodall interaction with those bipedal Sasquatch down there. But if he knows, and he's proved it, that if you have metal, batteries, chains, knife, modern stuff, you're not going to get close to him. Last summer, I told him, Lucas, just strip down to your shorts and walk barefoot. And that's one of the big key things that I didn't dawn on me till this recently. Peggy used to tease me about my feet years ago, that they're like Gandalf, a hobbit, because I walked around barefoot, rock hopping, gravel, beaches, grass, forest floor, because it gives you the ultimate stealth. You know, like even me, I got new hearing aids last week, 2 of them. And what drives me nuts wearing my moccasins is I didn't hear that up until my hearing aids, and it drives me nuts. So you can imagine what it's like for the animals with big ears when they hear humans with shoes on. And that's where years ago I learned, I'm going to get rid of the shoes. And that's when all of a sudden you'd be amazed how close you can sneak up to animals when you're using windage and stealth. So the Sasquatches, when you go out there and you go barefoot, you're breaking the pattern. Everything is patterned to them. They're like prophetic savants. You break the pattern, or a idiot savant, shit in a handbasket. They go ape shit crazy. So Sasquatches, when they see us always wearing footwear, it's normal. But when you go barefoot, drop your clothes, no knife, no battery, no metal, no money. And we even do, when we go deep investigating, like Lucas, we'll get him out here again, and him and I and Peggy will probably go deep. That means we're going to buy clothes, wash them in no detergent 3 or 4 times, put them in garbage bags like this one here, full of all of these evergreens as our trail cameras. You're killing the human scent, the modern scent. And that's how you get close encounter of the hairy kind with the Sasquatch. And Lucas has taught me so much, and other North American Indians as well, because they don't ug up with me, because I'm a fellow Indian and I'm also a Sasquatch celebrity, you know, no big head bragging, but, you know, I do star in 2 movies, David Paulides' new one, North American Sasquatch. I'm in 6 episodes. Bigfoot Girl, Amazon Prime, star in that show. On Expedition Bigfoot season 6, numerous episodes, and probably 20, 30 other documentaries on Sasquatch, and hundreds of podcasts and videocasts. So when Indians see me and they go, "Oh, I'm here with Sasquatch Island. Can I get my picture with you?" Sure, no problem. You know, and I give them a sticker or whatever. And, you know, so being that sort of quasi Sasquatch celebrity, the Indian doors open to me, and they just verbal diarrhea with what they know about Sasquatch, which really helps all of us because I share it with everyone else.
Skin Kwando from Michigan has asked if you've ever went to the state of Michigan, and also would like to know, what about Dogman? Your thoughts about Dogman?
I have belief in Dogman. I've only heard of one report of Dogman in the Pacific Northwest, and that was up on a big island off eastern North Vancouver Island. The island's name is actually Guilford Island. That's the only report I've ever got from British Columbia of a Dogman. I've never been to Michigan, but I'd like to. I hear, you know, I asked you guys earlier if there was Sasquatch here, and you guys said yeah, and then all of a sudden I remembered, oh, all these good videos come from Michigan and footprints and that.
Yeah, we've got Dogman here too. We've got lots of reports of it here.
I'm glad we don't have it here. That's one spooky critter.
Yeah,
we just had a guest on a couple weeks ago that saw a white one outside of her apartment complex about an hour from us.
from here. About
Wow.
yeah, and
yeah.
You know, That's
Go back to
I'm
River's
there.
question.
Yes, yeah. River Mars is from Australia. Yeah. He said, I'm a tribal elder, reared a jury. I apologize if I'm not. Biripi tribes, freshwater, saltwater man. Have you spoken to them in your language, your lingo?
Oh, he's a smart elder, that one.
Yeah, he is.
So I went to my Helicum, my chief speaker. He's passed now, Chief Adam Dick. But anyway, I went to him years ago and I said, Adam, I'm out there in the bush. Yeah, I know you're crazy. You're always in the bush. And I'm like, yeah, I always coming across Chunocha. Why are they always picking on me? Because they're not picking on you. They're just teasing you. They want to know a little bit more about you because you're doing things most of us don't do no more. He goes, just respect them. I said, but what do I do when I like wake up at night and they're by me? He goes, speak to them in Kwakwala, our language. He goes, when I was younger, we went up the Kinkum River on when outboard motors first came out. We had it on a cedar dugout canoe. We went up and there's a teenager with us. We went way up river. We got to our smokehouse cabin and we pulled over on the beach. But because the river floods, the cabin's built up the bank quite a bit in the bush. And we gave a wooden box with a pot of food that the woman had made us to the young teenager. Run that up to the cabin and start a wood stove fire and put that pot on there. Come back down and help us with the rest of the gear when we got to start getting our salmon to smoke and dry. All of a sudden, that young teenager come running back down with the wooden crate with the stew pot. Quick, get in the boat, get in the boat. We got to get out of here. What for? There's a big Jonah, a Sasquatch, sleeping beside the cabin. It stood up and looked at me, rubbed its eyes, and went, yo, yo. In Kwakwala means, hello, I don't know who you are. Adam goes, well, why didn't you say Ichmet? I'm doing good. And Pa goes, yeah, Jonah, what are you up to, Sasquatch? Oh, I got so scared. We got to get up. We're not taking off out of here. Go back up there. We'll come with you. He's probably gone anyway. And they went up, and sure enough, they could see where the Sasquatch was sleeping. The Sasquatch was gone. So Adam said, speak Kwakwala, our language, to him. So it took years, went by till I was out scouting for grizzly bears. So I'd go out 2 weeks to 6 weeks before the grizzly bear season and scout. And I'd go deep, deep up rivers, mountains, alpines. I was way out in the middle of Timbuk, flipping nowhere. And I'd be in my hammock with my my blanket around me and my tarp, my shotgun and my rifle with me, my tarp above my head so it keep the rain off me. And all of a sudden I woke up and I looked and I saw that the moon had moved about 4 or 5 hours. So I went to sleep about 7 before it got dark. So I'm thinking, midnight, 1 o'clock, and licked my fingers, shove them in my nose. And sure enough, the tang of Chunach, a Sasquatch. And I could hear, sure enough, downwind from me. That's why I didn't get really good scent. And all of a sudden I hear, starts absorbing, breathing in my scent. And I'm like, hair stand up in the back of my neck, sort of squeeze my firearms closer to me. I'm like, okay, what am I going to do here? And that's when I thought of my Helicum, my chief speaker, and speak Kwakwala to them. So I'm, yo, Weeksas Chunaka. Hello, I don't know who you are. How you doing, Sasquatch? And all I heard was a sniff a couple times and a Ichman, almost like it was saying Ichman. Ichman in my language of Kwakwala means I'm doing good. And then it mumbled something that sounded in our language, it's like, who are you? And I thought, he's asking who I am. So, Thomas Sewid, my 2 Indian names. My 2 tribes. Tum Tum Tuls Kilkse. I was speaking Pidgin Kwakwala, but I was telling them I come from the house of Tum Tum Tuls, the clan. And then I said, Kwakwakiwak, I'm from the Kwakwakiwak nation. And that's when I heard in Kwakwala, means yes. And I heard him move a bit more, sniff deeper, smelling me. And all of a sudden, the moonlight, he stood up and I could see his head and his big wide shoulders, and he's towering above me about maybe 12 feet away. And he put up his right hand. Way means like aloha, goodbye. And he turned and walked away into the moonlight and darkness. And that's when I knew what a Sasquatch was. They are members of the other tribe. They are humans of the night. We are the bipedal hairless human of the day. And that's how we indigenous people have lived in harmony and balance with the origin humanoid, the Sasquatch, since the dawn of our creations and long before any ship came from Europe. And that's what I'm trying to pass on to everyone is let's get back to harmony and balance with Sasquatch. We do not need to kill one. If one gets run over by a train or a semi or a vehicle, or we find a body, yes, by all means, let's bring it in.
Yeah.
But let's try to have a Diane Fossey and Jane Goodall never killed any primate. They made it to the cover of National Geographic with editorial inside because they had an interaction with a quasi-bipedal creature of Africa. We can do the same in North America, in Australia with the Yowie, Orang Pendek in Indonesia, Al Masadi in Asia, Yeti in Asia, and even what I hear sounds like Neanderthal in Eastern Europe. And then you got all the other names I can't pronounce from the indigenous people and others of Central America and South America. So we have to evolve and progress further as a species, as humans, so that we don't need to kill one. And that's why I wrote the Chance Encounter and Investigating of Sasquatch Recommendations Guidelines booklet. You know, it's about 35 pages, but if anyone wants a copy, I'd be happy to send it to you. And it's basically to do like we bush people do and commercial fishermen do to people out where we live and work. Smack them upside the head, give them a reality check. Because humanity right now needs a really good kick in the ass and a slap outside the head because the path we're on when it comes to Sasquatch is not a good one.
Yeah.
Tammy Johnson, wealth of knowledge here. Tammy Johnson is curious. She had one question regarding the discussion of the mind speak. Can you ask? I'm sorry. Since not Bigfoot's possible, is something else doing this? You think to people like DM and peeps thinking it's Bigfoot?
The shaman path is a very spooky, scary, enlightening, a wealth of understanding on levels that we couldn't even imagine. So once you open the shaman path, and I've dabbled with it quite a bit. I made a choice in my younger years whether I was going to go down the path of shamanism or Hamatsa. I chose Hamatsa, but I still get a lot of my training from the shamans that I reach out to that agree to teach me. And when you're a shaman and you die violently, quickly, be it disease, warfare, car accident, because you had too many drinks when you're at the casino, like happened to one of them a few years ago, your tribe no longer has the shaman. So someone must step forward and say, I volunteer. I'll see you when I see you. And even to this day, some of the tribe members will leave for years on end. 2, 3, 5 years, they return to the tribe and go, I had my Diane Fossey, Jane Goodall interaction with our Sasquatches. And because the Omaha call their Sasquatch Sitonga, keeper of the medicine, all Sasquatches are Sitonga, keeper of the medicine. They pass on to the hairless Indian tribe member their medicinal plant knowledge, roots, flowers, buds, and the list goes on. And that apprentice now comes forth and starts apprenticing by practicing what he was or she was taught from the Sasquatches to the tribes members. And after a decade or two, they are no longer apprentices. They've used their fellow tribespeople and perfected their skill to be a shaman. And before they die, they will pass that knowledge on so someone else doesn't have to go interact with Sasquatch. So I've talked to a few shamans who have interacted with their Sasquatch in their tribal territories. And that's why I teach people that when something happens with, like I do know orbs are in my territory, loliloch. They're ghosts. Because I've seen orbs in places where a village was eradicated by smallpox or tuberculosis or warfare intertribally before contact or just after. And I've seen orb. And to me, they're loliloch, in our language, ghosts. So when it comes to the mind speaking, it's amazing what shamans can do. So go seek out your local tribe and try to bring offering of tobacco, blanket, foods, and other things, and hopefully gift the shaman so that they will do as they've done to me in many cases. Sat down with me at their fire and passed on Nusa, told me their story and understanding through Sasquatch shamanism. And that's why I coined Sasquatch shamanism, because now that I'm 60 and I got diabetes and 2 hearing aids, a blown out right leg, that's why I'm managing SasquatchLegend.com, the largest store and museum in North America here in Forks, Washington, because I can't chase down grizzly bears like I used to. I can't go investigating Sasquatch by walking after I get out of my speedboat from sea level to punching through timber into alpine and across alpine for days and weeks on end. Those days are over. And I can't afford a helicopter to bring me up there. And, you know, there's so many things that I can't do no more, but I can do one thing. I can Nusa, as I've done tonight, tell my story. And in turn, pass that understanding on to you people. Sure, I don't believe in what I call woo-woo, mind speaking, orb turning, UFO cloaking, UFO flying, glyph laying. But for those that do know, reach out to your fellow local neighbors called Indians, North American Indians, Canada, US, Canada, we're First Nation, or even Central America, South America, and to the gentlemen in Australia, the Aborigine people, and to the people in New Zealand, if they're listening, the Maori, and the list goes on, and ask them, what do you call your Sasquatch? How do I say I come in peace in your language? How do I say welcome? May I sit with you? I've brought you some food. Halakilasla. Go in peace in my language, in my territory. And you'll be amazed when you go out and you dump the metal, the cameras, the batteries, the weapons. Don't ever bring guns when you Sasquatch investigate unless you have a pistol, because you're from the US, in 2 Ziploc bags in a belly bag or backpack. They smell that cordite and oil, they're gone. They smell that metal, they're gone. So when you do get out there and all of a sudden you hear something that's downwind from you, and you smell something, or maybe that's circling you, and you hear that them smelling you. Yo,
Yeah.
week says Junakla. Hello, how you doing, Sasquatch? We does lay Junakla. What are you up to? Halakilasla. Go in peace. And you will be amazed in the tribal tongues of where you investigate from those native tribes. Plus, you've done something that most non-Indians have never done in the United States, from what I'm gathering in my learning, because I'm a president of a big organization to harvest seals and sea lions. So I interact with a lot of non-Indians across North America daily. A lot of them have never taken the time to sit down with the local Indian tribe or person. And when you do that, they may make friends with you. They may teach you their language. They may teach you their understanding, beliefs, perspectives, and encounters with their Sasquatch. They may invite you into their territories and Indian reservations, and hopefully you will have that close encounter of the hairy kind.
I wanted to say something about, you were talking about the hammocks. I've spent many a night, sleeping in a hammock when we go out turkey hunting in the mountains. And I've had stuff happen laying in that hammock, like you said, shotgun in the hammock. And they'll be out there mimicking stuff. I'll hear gibberish. And it's interesting when you're laying in a hammock hearing that stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I hear it.
Yeah.
And if you really listen to what we automatically call gibberish, you'll understand it's a language.
Yeah. I can definitely tell, because I could hear two of them. I could hear 2 of them going back and forth on both sides of us.
And the best thing I could teach you is don't ever think we're the superior bipedal of this planet.
Yeah. Exactly.
We are the inferior bipedal. Sasquatch, when we learn about Sasquatch, we, number one, have to accept that they are the superior and we are the inferior. So when we look at trying to understand Sasquatch, and people, they would be primitive. They be this, they be that. Well, no, you're being on a soapbox thinking that you're on a pedestal and you're all high and almighty and the smartest bipedal on the planet. Well, you just screwed up. You'll never get close to a Sasquatch or understand them.
Yeah.
You have to progress to feralism. What it's like to be in harmony and balance with nature and living without weapons, tools, warfare, hate, anger, animosity. So the best thing I could teach people is go and find out, whether it be a streaming service or order a DVD, as my wife did, from a 1980s comedy from South Africa. First episode, The Gods Must Be Crazy. When you watch it and you understand how a empty Coke bottle introduced to a South African bush clan family, how it disrupts the whole social structure and introduces hate, animosity, greed, jealousy, and warfare. And the father grabs it, clan leader, and says, I have to go to the edge of the world and throw back this, whatever it is, to the gods, because they must be crazy for giving it to us. That is, then when you have progressed back to understanding, have a level of understanding with Sasquatch. Now you can get one-on-one with them like I can when I go out there on my own when I really want to find one.
We're getting a boatload of questions here in chat. So.
Gary, I think Misty's got a good one there.
I okay. There's
we're way behind here.
we're way behind. I apologize. I'm not going to cut him off. I'm going to let him talk. Shizo asks, isn't it possible that they take different approaches with different types of people based on their energies and or their demeanor, also known as aura or intent?
Absolutely. You wear camo, you have a knife on your side, you have a firearm, you never can get close to one because you're a asshole. You want to kill everything out in the forest because that's what you're doing. You're hunting. So you're automatically perceived as a threat. They will DD out of there. So they see someone wearing mountain equipment co-op, got bear bells, got those pillowy, puffy, bright colored jackets, REI, mountain equipment co-op. They got the backpack with the straw going to their mouth, and they got the stupid hat that says Patagonia. They don't even know what Patagonia means. And they're slipping and falling, and they're watching where every footprint goes. The Sasquatches go, let's go have some fun. And they walk out and scare the living bejesus out of those concreteites out for a hike and a wander in the forest. But when all of a sudden, like my painting right here called The Watcher, when you look at the pupils, that's a silhouette of Peggy, my wife, walking stick, backpack, baseball cap, and ponytail. And it's holding on to two branches. Because the Sasquatch is referred by many Indian tribes in Vancouver, Vancouver Island, British Columbia, as the Watcher, because they will watch you. And when they see Tom or Peggy walking, like when I first met Peggy in 2008, we went mushroom picking. We got together in May. We went mushroom picking in October. And she had to do her business. And I said, yeah, I'll just turn my back to you. But as she was walking through the forest and the bushes to go do her business behind a tree, I realized why I fell in love with her. She's a bush dancer. She's comfortable and ease in a bush and beach environment. She doesn't have to look where the next 12 or 14 steps go. She doesn't have to grab onto everything for support. She just simply flowed like the breeze to the huckleberry bushes and the salal and the fallen branches and trees. And that's what the Sasquatcher does when he sees Peggy or I. Looks and sees a bush, two bush dancers. We're comfortable and ease than others. And then you ask the person who, I'm a trapper, I'm a mushroom picker, I'm a forest surveyor, I'm a geologist, I'm a prospector. I'm always in the bush. There are no such thing as Bigfoot. Y'all stupid. You ask them, oh, out there and doing your thing in the bush. You ever sometimes hear something turn around and there's a branch bouncing? No wind, no breeze, no bird, no raccoon cub, no cougar cub, no bear cub, but a bouncing branch? Yeah, come to think of it. Why? That was a Sasquatch. Pulled the branch down and was watching you. Observed that you're a bush dancer, comfortable in their environment. And it pulled the branch down, let it go, turned around, and walked away from you. And the bouncing branch says, I saw you. I acknowledge you. I respect you. I expect you to do the same. Go about your business. I shall do the same. And then you'll see their eyes go bug-eyed and they'll go, holy shit. Every time me and my brothers go to the cabin up the mountains, hunt elk and hunt every year, pretty much every year it happens. No, that really was Sasquatch? I said, yes. That's what the bouncing bow is.
Well, Phil's 91 to ask about the Mohow in New Zealand.
I am not Amari. I don't know. You got to talk to them. Or Google it. White Man's Magic. Google and Facebook.
What else did you have, Chad? There's something else here.
Any other questions on the board?
Oh, yeah,
Misty,
we're getting to them. Yeah.
Misty had asked if you've ever heard one say Tana Etahe.
Over 1,400, over 647 Indian dialects in North America. I'm struggling to learn two of them. My mother's Cree dialect and my father, who's no longer with me, is Kwakwala dialect. So as far as other dialects, Google it or go talk to the local Indian tribe who speaks that language.
Have you
There's
seen
definitely a lot of stuff.
Have you seen Little People?
I have not seen them, but some people came to me when I was living in Bush in the 90s and said, we're going to leave for a few weeks and we have water recorders. They're plywood boxes on a stream where salmon spawn, and it records with a waterproof paper round graph with a mechanism you wind up with and you got to fill up the ink well. And once a week, you got to go change the round paper graph in the box with the unused ones and leave the used one in there while we're gone and wind up the machine and add ink. I said, sure. Okay. So they gave me the keys for 4 or half a dozen boxes, whatever it was that year. So I get to this, Bushman, I know if I'm going to go do this, I got to do it on a rising tide because I don't want to dry up my speedboat for a few hours and waste part of my day. So I go at low water rising and I get to this one place, which is a stream estuary. And it's like 150, 200 yards up to this plywood box on this, sandy, pea gravelly thing. So I beach my speedy boat and I run the long line for halibut, which is probably half the length of the beach. And I threw my anchor down. So as the water comes in on a flat beach, it comes in fast. So I want to be able to retrieve my boat. So I walk up and I'm like, I don't need my gun. I walk up and I get up to the plywood box. And as I'm getting to the box, all of a sudden the bank across from me, and it's a small little stream and it's dried up pretty much because it's low water. The thimbleberry bushes, salal, salmonberry just erupt in ferns. Just like you hear this scurrying, like half a dozen scurrying. I see the bushes moving, ferns, and I'm thinking, I must have spooked the family of river otters. So I open the box, unlock it, open it up, change the paper, added some ink, start cranking like an old clock with this key, this mechanism, and it's. So I get it wound up, close the lid, put the lock on, I turn around, there's my footprints coming up the sand and pea gravel. And across it are these little length of there's a good picture I got from the internet of a little person's footprint and a big pen beside it. Well, that was the same size footprints times 2 or 3 going across my boot prints that I put in not 5 minutes before. And all of a sudden, I've this head just snapped up and looked at the bank. And all of a sudden, I hear, as I'm looking at the bank, I hear, and they scurry all over. And I just like, Bookwas! I turned and I'm just like when I ran from the bushes throwing cockles to a Sasquatch when I was a teenager to give them a gift. You can measure my footprints on that beach after I ran to my boat and pushed off and got out of there. They're probably 20, 30 feet apart because, man, I was boogieing. And because they're bad omen, bad juju. You don't want to be around the little people because some tribes are so strict about it, they won't even talk about it because it'll bring bad omen.
Wow.
Do you believe we got plenty of questions coming up here? I don't know, Chad. I don't know why that happened, and we'll have to look into that after the show. But do you believe that the Sasquatch people possess knowledge of herbs, fungi, saps, and other or other natural substances that could treat diseases such as cancer or viruses that still affect humans?
I'll give you benefit of the doubt, whoever asked that question. That just go back on this episode and I've answered that question in depth. Or if you've been listening since the beginning, go to your bathroom and grab a Q-tip because you didn't hear me. I'm just kidding. But yeah, I answered your question. Yes, they do. They have forgotten more about medicinal remedies in the territory they live in than we will ever know.
Very good. I've heard people who have said they heard a Bigfoot say "wah," as in WAUGH. Do you know what that means, Thomas?
No, I answered that question too. There's over 647 indigenous Indian dialects in North America alone. I'm struggling to learn 2 of them. So you got to reach out to the local Indians or find out where that word comes from, what dialect.
We already took care of the squirrel question. So help me out here, Chad. You're way down the list further than I am. I've been trying to go back and store the one.
I can't keep track of anything here. This is. I know what I wanted to ask you, Thomas. I remember you telling a story years ago of the guy getting the front end of his truck smashed.
Oh, that's a dandy one. That one actually, geez, you read my mind. I was actually thinking about that a couple of days ago at work. Going, hey, I got to post that on Sasquatch Island Facebook group and do a TikTok about that one. So a friend of mine was a prawn fisherman, big shrimp fisherman commercially in northern Vancouver Island. We became very good friends. So I hung out at his house, and his wife, she was a miserable bitch. But anyway, we were friends, and we were talking, and Sasquatch came up. And she said, I was in Port Alberni as a teenager after school. I go down to the logging company's office. Now, back in the 60s, 70s, early, and 80s, our logging companies were huge corporations with bunkhouses and shops and hundreds of men and women working for them. So after school, she'd go there and she'd clean out the administrator, foreman, and everyone's offices and do all of the janitorial work. And she said you got there after school, so, it's late afternoon. All of a sudden, this pickup truck just comes speeding and slams on the brake in the gravel parking lot, and you hear all the noise as it comes to a halt, and this guy comes running in, and he's all frantic and huffing and puffing. I just ran over a Sasquatch. I just hit a Sasquatch. Look at my effing truck. And everyone goes outside, and she did too. And the truck is just pummeled. The hood. Now, you got to remember, this is a 1970s pickup truck. They're not built like Coke cans back then. They're tough, heavy steel. The hood's pummeled, the windshield smashed, the passenger side windows all spidered and busted in. And the guy's like trying to calm him down. He's like, I was coming up this road, the crest of the hill, and the low sun was in my windshield and the dirt and dust on the windshield, and I couldn't really see. And all of a sudden I saw this big thing standing in front of me, and I was probably doing 50 mile an hour, and bang, I hit it, and it went flying and skidded off to the side of the ditch. I thought I hit a big human because of the glare from the sun. So I jumped out and I walked up to the hood, and there's this big hairy Sasquatch lying there moaning and trying to get up, but you can see it's like injured badly. And all of a sudden, the bushes start breaking. I look up to my right, and here's this huge Sasquatch just starting his lunge. I turned, ran, jumped in the driver's side, and that thing jumped and hit the hood. Bang! Started pummeling it. And he goes, I'm just freaking out. I can't get it in gear. It's a 3-on-a-tree pickup truck. I'm popping the clutch and stalled it, and I'm panicking, and the thing's beating the truck, and the smashed out the passenger window. I got it in gear, I popped the clutch, and I got the hell out of there. And this is the truck. What are we going to do? We should go up there. So first thing the foreman said was to another high up guy, get the machines down here to dig a hole down the road there in the dump, bury that damn truck. But first run over it with the cat and squash it. And you shut up and get in the office. And you get back to work doing your job, young lady. And this never happened. And she was working, witnessed the big machine come back and forth over top of the damaged pickup truck and flatten it to a pancake. And they grabbed it and dragged it down to where the dump area was, dug a deep as that cat could dig, she said, because she could see it from the window. They dug a hole through that pickup truck in there and buried it, and it was never spoken about again.
That one was a crazy one.
Oh, I got lots. Because, like I say, I've been interviewing so many different people. Like, you know, it's nice now with the modern day smoke signal, Facebook Messenger. You know, I'll be in bed or doing something, all of a sudden I get a message or I get a phone call, video call. And one guy phoned me one time. Can you hear it? Can you hear it? I'm trying to wake up because late at night I was sleeping, and you could hear the Sasquatch screaming. I'm like, holy, that thing's close. Like, where are you? He goes, me and my wife are in bed. I got the window open with the cell phone up there talking to you. And I'm like, well, get out of bed and go on your porch with a flashlight and see if we can video it. No, I'm doing that. That thing's close. So I get all kinds of reports from my fellow North American Indians, you know, like from different states, from different provinces and northern territories. And it's really nice knowing that my fellow Indigenous people, you know, are reaching out, even like that gentleman from Australia, you know, he's an elder from the tribe. And, you know, that really humbles me that someone would actually reach out from Australia as an elder from a tribe down there and want to ask me a question. You know, it's that made my week.
Yeah, River's a cool guy. I talked to him a good bit.
He's a good guy. He'll let you know. He's told us all about, you know, the I forget what they're called now, but his heritage and everything. Yeah. It's awesome.
Cowrie shells. I asked someone on the Facebook Yowie group. I belong to half a dozen of them. But I asked them, I said, our Sasquatches, people always go, I go in the bush all the time. I never find a Sasquatch. I've heard them, hear them tree knocking and whooping and see their tracks and evidence. I never get close to them. I'm like, well, stay out of the unclipped pubic hair. What do you want to go in the forest for? You're never going to see a Sasquatch. You know, we can only go to the few like Paul Freeman, Bob Gimlin, Roger Patterson, Independent Sasquatch, the family shooting their guns with rotten snow on the ground, helicopter flying around, Sasquatch bolts, and maybe another dozen videos and pictures that are pretty good. But of the millions of people going into the yarn basket pubic hair forests in North America, come on, the percentage number is like minuscule, the amount that actually come across a Sasquatch. But then you look at the ones that have been looking and seeing Sasquatch in fields, beaches, riverbanks, lake shores, mountain alpines. The percentage of success of seeing them on those locations is far greater than the ones going into the forest. So if you want to find a Sasquatch, stay the hell out of the forest. Go to the open area. So right now, this time of the year, I noticed my neighbor down the street, because we have no Sasquatches in downtown Forks, or deer or bear for the most case. But her apple trees are just filled with red, yellow apples. And it's the middle of December. And behind where I work at SasquatchLegend.com, the Airbnb back there has got 2 apple trees that are just filled with green apples. And the grounds are covered with apples. But if I go out to where we've been investigating to some of these areas with apples, trees, where Sasquatch activity takes place, there's not one apple or apple core to be found on ground or in tree, because they've picked them clean along with the bears and other animals, deer and elk. But Sasquatch can climb trees pretty good, so they get the highest ones, not the elk, because they can't climb trees, nor the deer. And usually bears that are big won't go right to the top branches because they risk being fallen. They'll just move to another place. So what I'm getting at is, if you want that close encounter of the hairy kind, go to those open areas. So me, I go to big extreme low tides and watch the beaches. And that's why my Sasquatch Island team with Adam Davies, we all know who Adam Davies is, we hold the standard record for the longest video fleur of a Sasquatch recorded up to this day. And that was off Vancouver Island on Quadra Island, on the central part of Vancouver Island offshore, in an inlet where Adam was out on the back deck of a yacht we were all in the galley having sippage, and all of a sudden Adam having a smoke out in the back deck with a Fleur Scout 2 mono, opened the door and said, "Tom, you better come out here and look at this." Went out. There's a bipedal something getting up, squatting down on the half tide rising out in the open. And then all of a sudden everyone else comes out. We pass the Fleur around, and then the other two Fleurs come out, and night vision apparatus. But I had the wherewithal to grab my cell phone, put the lens of my cell phone on the eyepiece of the Fleur 2 and see the screen. I'm like, wow, hit record. We got 16 minutes and 40 seconds. Omaha Indian Reserve, Lucas White, Tarzan. We sent him a cell phone and some other equipment. He recorded the longest daytime Sasquatch video to date, 3 minutes, 40 seconds. At the edge of the bush, walking along a ditch line at the edge of a freshly harvested cornfield. So if you're going to find Sasquatch and get that close encounter of the hairy kind and the good video and pictures, you got to be out in the open.
Wind Clan Ken, one of our native friends, asked, Thomas, you mentioned the abandoned village sacred site. Was it abandoned due to changing environment or other reasons?
Residential schools. Once people like my late grandfather, Chief James Sewid, and others had fought for our rights and equality in Canada. One of the rights we won in the late 1950s or early 1960s was the right to own private property outside of an Indian reserve, meaning we could live freely. And we could, if we had houses where the schools were, we could have our children live in the confines of our home instead of a cultural incinerator, soul incinerator called a residential school. So the exodus in the 1960s took place where everyone in my territories left the isolated villages and the inlets and islands and went to places like Campbell River, Alert Bay, Port Hardy, Port McNeil, and assimilated into Canadian society or an Indian reserve, and were able to have their children live in their homes. And they had other reasons. Hospitals were where the communities were. I asked one of my elders back in the early 90s, I said, Scotty, he was one of my counselors and for my tribe. I said, at a meeting, I said, Scotty, why'd you leave Village Island in 1972? John Wayne. I'm like, what? Yeah, no movie theater in Village Island. Alert Bay had the movie theater. I wanted to see the John Wayne movies and others. So everyone had their reason.
Okay, I think we're all caught up on chat, so a couple more minutes here. We're gonna, if you got a question, go ahead and put them in all caps here real quick for us.
What I wanted to say to you, Thomas, was about getting close to him. I accidentally did that one time and got screamed at it for my troubles.
Oh yeah, we were building cabins for my Indian tribe 2012, 2013 up on a 250-acre Indian Reserve island of ours at the edge of Blackfish Sound, which is the world's capital of orca and humpback whale watching in North America and the world. So anyway, we're building these cabins out there, and we had an outside kitchen with a metal lockbox that we had twisted wire on for locking it for the bears and other animals. And then I'm like telling my crew, you guys quit leaving the garlic out. The mice keep taking it. Oh, no, we're not even using the garlic, man. You're the one who likes that in your butter for crabs and prawns. We don't use that garlic stuff. And I like, my apples, the apples are going missing. Darcy's like, I don't have geekies. Opens his mouth and clacks what few teeth he has. Geekies means teeth. I knew he wasn't taking the apples. And John, he's like, oh, I got abscess teeth. I can't eat apples. That stuff's kill you anyway. So I'm like, okay, got to be Sasquatch. So I start doing perimeter shirts because it's the end of the summer. They're usually not there in the summer. So it's like into late September. And that's when I find out observation decks for where the prevailing southeast, where they'd be downwind, elevated up on this bluff, watching us from about 30 yards away from our picnic table and cook table and cabins edge. And then northwest, they're right above our tarp where all of our equipment is, like compressors and saws and lumber, so we don't want it to get wet because we do live in a rainforest. And there's where they've trampled the grass down, where they're looking, because I put a milk crate on and I stood on it. Now I'm looking over the tarp because I'm only 5'10", but because I'm standing on a milk crate, I'm almost 6.5 feet now. And I'm looking right down at our picnic table where we sit after work and during our meals. And I'm like, that son of a bitch, that's who's stealing my garlic and apples. So I tell the crew. And then finally one night when it's just me and Darcy there, I snuck out the window of the cabin in camo with my rifle. And Darcy's, quit picking on the Sasquatch. I said, Dad, never mind. Just don't be shooting at 30-30 until you see me and I tell you if you have to shoot, which you're not gonna. I'll be back in a bit. So I'm crawling on my belly, because that's how you break silhouette in bush. And I'm going through all of the piles of leaves and branches from trees and that we've cut down because we're making a tourist cabin area. So we're waiting for the November monsoons to come so we can burn the piles of debris without burning down the 250-acre forested island. And as I'm going through the mounds of leaves and branches and chunks of most of the wood we use for firewood piled up, but I get to the edge of the trail at the wall of second growth trees leading into the trail goes into the island, but it's also goes up to our outhouse unit inside the bush about 100 feet. And it's a skidder trail that when they logged it in 1923, they used skidders to drag the logs down to the water where we're setting these cabins up on flat ground, which used to be a log sort. And so there's like a 5-foot berm leading up onto the forest floor in our path or trail. So right at the edge of the mouth of the trail, there's a big pile of alder leaves I specifically piled up. They're like maple leaves, brown, crinkly. So they're dry. So I crawl in there. I'm sitting on my butt, and I'm covered in leaves except for my baseball cap where I get to see a sliver out. And as it's getting dark, sure enough, there comes this lanky teenage Sasquatch that I jumped and scared a couple weeks before. He's about 6.5 feet tall, teenager, and he's sneaking along the bush edge, looking at the back of my cabins. And as he gets to the berm, 5 foot down to where the trail entry is, and I'm hiding in those leaves right there, he grabs an alder tree about 3.5, 4 inches in diameter, and he steps down looking at my cabins with his right leg. And as he just puts his left foot down, I jump out of the leaves and go, "Hey, what are you doing?" And he looks at me and he just gets scared. He's, got his hands out at me. I jump up. I put my hands up. I'm, you. And he looks at me with a stunned look like I smacked him upside the head. And then he goes, turns, grabs that tree, pulls it, and you see it bend. He jumps up on the bank, looks at me again and yells at me. I yell back at him, and he turned and ran through the timber with scared shitless because I spooked the hell out of him. I had turned the tables on him. And that's what I wanted to do, to show him I'm the superior bipedal creature on this island. And you will quit stealing my garlic and my apples. Well, the next day, we hear something, smell something, and I'm looking up through the alder trees because they've shook most of their leaves. And there's this big cedar stump from 1923 when they logged the island, and it's probably 6 foot in diameter. And the flare on it's probably 15, 16 feet wide, roots and everything. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, something's odd. So as I'm looking at it, the number one rule in bush, don't pull your eyes away. Otherwise, the thing will leave if it's a Sasquatch. So I go, Darcy, grab my Bushnell scope. I had a Bushnell scope in a cardboard box. I still got it here. I can see it in my cupboard over there. And it's a spare one. Anyway, Darcy shoves it in my face. I'm like, take it out of that cardboard box, you idiot, and crank it up to 9 power. So he cranks it up and he gives it to me, and I put it on that stump. And I'm like, oh, you son of a bitch. And there's Daddy, the big 445 drum and a half shoulders width, looking at us. And he's got his right arm out on a splay against the log, and he's covered most of his body in alder leaves, like I did the evening before. And we're all passing the scope around looking at it. My non-Indian carpenter, that's it. Like working in Mogadishu and Iraq. You guys all packing guns around because of Sasquatch. Oh, I'm looking at one. I quit. I'm out of here. And he starts packing his stuff for us to get him back to the island, which we did. But as I'm looking at that stump and that big Sasquatch, my turn again, that big Sasquatch stands up, leaves are falling off him. He looks right at me in the scope and goes, turned, poof, 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 up the hill in the forest and disappears. I looked at my two native crew. Peace is achieved. They'll swim off the island now. And sure as what I said, never had any problem with stealing, hearing, smelling, or interacting with those Sasquatch for the next 3 to 5 weeks we were there. And the next year, no problems, and the years thereafter. So that was one time I had to piss higher up the cedar stump than the Sasquatches and show them that I'm the superior bipedal and this is my island, not yours. You're welcome here, but you can't be stealing my food. So anyway, I got to get going here. I'm a diabetic and my stomach's growling.
Yep. Yeah. I hated to keep you this long, but man, it's just so much to listen to.
Oh, anytime. Just reach out to the listeners. If you guys want me on again, we can do subjects. We can do Sasquatch shamanism. And we're really going deep about things about them and medicinal stuff. We can do the conspiracy, the government conspiracy, and why they won't recognize the existence of Sasquatch and how they're shooting them with gunships from helicopters at night. Perfected Gatling guns. The Gatling gun was made to shoot Indians, eradicate us so that they could take over North America. The Gatling gun that was first invented has been perfected with night optics, remote control, and military shooting them right now out in the deep forest so that they don't get conclusive proof of the other tribe. And then we got other subjects we can talk about, including little people, sea monsters.
Cool.
I was going to say no portals, no UFOs. I'm just kidding.
No, it's all bunk and bullshit. It's like getting fraud standing on your show. You don't want that.
Yeah, it's been an awesome show. Chad, you were trying to say something there real quick.
No, I was just going to ask him about, we'll talk about it on the next time he's here, but the government and why we're not, why they won't acknowledge they're real.
Oh, yeah. No, I'll tell you about the men in black that approached me from the U.S. up on Vancouver Island, the men in blue, that Canadian team that followed me for an entire day till I made them buy my 2 beers and my burger at the end of the day when I did something. Doing a Sasquatch city tour in Vancouver, my first one. So, yeah, there's a lot to talk about and plus different things and just get a hold of me. And then the other one for all you listeners out there, Sasquatch Island Facebook group, asked to join it. It's the Encyclopedia Sasquatch. When I started doing posts, there's no repetitive posts unless I think they're worthwhile to talk about. They're all mine. It basically helps you get a close encounter of the hairy kind and give you a very good understanding of Sasquatch and my encounters. Then I got my YouTube channel where I take you all around the Pacific Northwest and on commercial fish boats for the last over a decade, showing you where some of the sightings we read about in John Green book and others up in Canada. I bring you to those places on commercial fish boats like Buttedale, and the list goes on. And TikTok, Sasquatch Island, if you want to be entertained with my little TikToks with Biggie, the big 8.5-foot mannequin of a Sasquatch in our store, SasquatchLegend.com. And by all means, go to SasquatchLegend.com. You can order online. And if you want me to videotape it or take pictures, I'll set up a tripod and you can see a video or pictures of me packaging your item that you ordered from SasquatchLegend.com and putting a couple of my stickers in there and my business card. And you'll be amazed. I got all my native art of Sasquatch is in T-shirts, coffee mugs, tumblers, shower curtains, bath mats, pictures, and original pieces, which you can see on SasquatchIsland.com on the gallery page. You'll be amazed with the Sasquatch designs I make. But I thank you very much. And to the listeners that have taken the time to be here for over an hour and a half, Halakulasla. Go in peace. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
We
Thomas.
appreciate it, Thomas. Thank you very much. Absolutely. Go get something to eat.
Okay. Don't forget to send me a link so I can post it on Sasquatch Island. Talk to you later, guys.
All right. Thank you.
Good night, Thomas.
Okay. Wow, what a guest. What a talker.
Yeah.
There's a good Matracumbo. Wow. I think if we're going to break all records for podcasts. I think you have him and Kumbo one. We could just sit back and take a nap and let them have at it.
Yeah.
Jeff, you still with us, Jeff?
I'm still here. I've just been
You did a
listening.
good job on that one, buddy. All of them. Jeff gets a lot of breakouts. So.
Yeah, I think we ran out of questions.
Well, not so much questions. I mean, he covered. If you really got to listen to him, because I have a whole list of written down questions I have week after week after week. I don't always get to them, but I was going down through the list, and somewhere along the line he covered pretty close to what that question would have been, so I didn't bother asking him. But I can understand. There's different languages and stuff. And we appreciate all the questions come in online, but when he's telling a couple others, he doesn't know what the language from another tribe is. That's why I asked you to Google it. I don't think he was being rude. He just, I don't want to keep asking him, questions about a certain term or whatever when I know he's just going to say, Google it. So, sorry.
And it doesn't look like the Google's giving much information.
Yeah, I seen
I'm
Squirrel.
sure.
Said Bigfoot wasn't real. That's what Google told her. I think it was her or somebody. But we know better.
Greg says
Oh,
I
Greg
can
House.
shoot from the hip. I'm pretty good at shooting from the hip, Greg.
Oh, there's Mr. House. I didn't even know he was in here. Does he just get here or just being quiet?
I don't
He's
know.
been in here.
It's all good. It's all good, Misty. You just worry about that other little fella over there. What's his name? Yeah.
Spencer.
Possum. Take care of the possum kingdom. We'll all be safe. And please don't give him a hard time 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning.
Misty,
I
think we need to start up a new chat tonight about 2 a.m.
No. But anyway, that was hilarious today. That got to him pretty good. I enjoyed that. I was like, man, the phone's just going ding, ding, ding here at my desk. I'm like, what in the world? And I look in there, and every so often, Spencer had a message in there, Now see what y'all are doing. You take it and blow it up, and blah blah blah. This, I think they kept posting to aggravate him. So that was hilarious.
And what's the plan for next week, Jerry? We're gonna
we're going to be here next. Well, it's Christmas Eve, if you will, and we're just going to no particular guest schedule. We're just going to come on and have fun for an hour or so, and Spencer Jitterbug. That's funny because my parents have one of them. My mom does when she uses it.
I think my grandfather had one of those at one point because of his giant fingers.
Yeah, they got big buttons. It's a flip phone. It's funny. Yeah, we're just going to goof off.
I had a whole list of questions. Most of them he answered. Some of them, I got to a point. I was like, I'm afraid to ask a question because I don't want him to jump down my throat. I was like, I don't want. Okay, we'll just leave it. But he ended up answering almost all of them. I wanted to know if his wife was native as well, but I never got that one in.
We'll have him back on.
Yeah, Ken's right.
Yeah, absolutely, Ken.
Native beliefs can be very different on topics.
Well, I'm sure these things, and we've discussed it.
All you do is click on a show. Can't you do that? I'm sorry, Chad.
I'm sure.
Can I do that?
Well, try it. Hold on. Let me click back off. Go ahead and try to just hover over his message and see if you see a plus sign. Click on it.
I'm not seeing. It's not working.
Okay. There's probably a reason I didn't give him that privilege. Sometimes you got to reel them in a little bit. I'm just kidding. We'll take care of that, Jeff. And Chad,
I'd be over there highlighting everything.
I literally have private. I'm like old screen, private chat and comments. That's it. I don't have any of the stuff that I would have for my show, the media center or media thing or any of that, like I used to have with yours. So I had issues Sunday night with the computer at the beginning of the show. And then when I logged on tonight, like I said, I was having camera issues again. So I don't know when it updated, if it did something or?
Probably. I may have to reissue your ability to do that for whatever reason. Your computer doesn't read that now. So.
Oh, it was telling me I had to sign up for StreamYard again and everything.
Oh, okay. Yep. All right, then it's not recognizing you now, so I'll have to go back in and reissue that ability. Okay. I'm not going to do that.
I love chat. Chat's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, that little tour he gave us before we started of the house, it's like a Bigfoot, like, I mean, he's even got the Patterson Gimlin room in the spare bedroom with
Oh,
a
yeah.
footprint on the door. The patty room.
Yeah, what I was saying when we were talking about portals and everything, and everybody was talking about all that different stuff that we've talked about 1,000 times on other shows. Maybe it's just different in different spots, different parts of the country. We know that these things act different. I mean, they have different mannerisms. So, maybe there's other things that he hasn't seen yet that exist in other parts of the world or the country. I don't know.
Things can be completely different up there.
Different
Absolutely.
beliefs, different belief. Yeah. Different geographical regions could be. Yeah. Obviously, there's different thoughts from
Sure.
opinions and stuff. So he made his clear. And that's fine.
Yep.
I appreciate that. I
He did.
appreciate it puts their point down. Once that's their beliefs, and that's what they're going to stay with.
I do appreciate the openness. I do appreciate that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like he said, a lot of the native people won't talk, and he's one that will bring it forth to you. So we got to appreciate that too.
Well, it's just like they behave differently here. They behave differently down in Alabama. They're,
Yeah, I'm sorry, he's saying it all right there. Exactly what.
yeah.
Thank you, D Shizzle.
She is.
Yeah, I agree with that.
They act different, and some groups act different in the same state.
They're just like, what I'm getting from all this, all the interviews we've done, all the interviews I've watched. That's exactly just like people, and there's light skinned ones, dark skinned ones, or haired ones, all these different things.
More
So
Neanderthal looking ones, more patty looking
yeah.
ones.
Yeah, and they all act different. I'm sure there's similarities, but
Yeah, like Schoonbo, what's type up? Is there 4 or 5 different types he's come up with? So, excuse me.
But the Dogman thing is definitely becoming more.
don't want that. I don't want Dogman.
Yeah,
Patrick, easy.
I'm telling you, it's the scary part around here is I'm starting to believe that there's more dogmen in this general area, not like specifically here, but in this range of area, if you will, a few counties in this area. It's a little creepy.
Because I swear we've heard more of those than we have
here recently. It's been really bad.
Yeah.
Not bad, but yeah. Okay, Kenny. Wah, W-A-H or W-A-U-G-H means surprise in Navajo. Okay. Patrick, Mr. Noble, you coming on with us next Tuesday for a few minutes? Keep that.
And whoever else wants
Keep
to make
not
an appearance,
Just kidding. Yeah.
i.e. House, Misty. Come on, Squirrel. You got to get on here at least.
And if your damn name's Jimmy Crab Legs, don't bother.
Maybe I'll change mine for the show. Check on D Shizzle's thing there. I like what he just said there. I think the natural dogmen are a type of Sasquatch, and the more wolfy ones are genetically engineered by the government or other at force.
Okay.
I could be.
So actually, we could take a second here and look at Jeff, and we could probably classify him as part of the little people tribe of some sort. What do you think, Jeff?
I mean, I'm not short enough to be a gnome, but I'm maybe some sort of bearded
Thank you,
gnome
Patrick.
warrior. I don't know.
Keep Patrick in mind for next Tuesday. Good deal. Very good.
I'm kind of similar to the size of one of those. What's that?
Loompa.
I'm telling you who you are. You're Gimli off of Lord of the Rings.
I was thinking Oompa Loompa, but all right.
I'm a dwarf warrior.
Yeah, he's the leader. Gimli. I think it's Gimli. He's the
Okay.
little.
Yeah,
Lord-
Greg, you and Misty get on next week.
Yep, sure. You can hop in here. Yep. Absolutely. Bring the Christmas spirit house.
Shizzle says I'm more Oompa Loompa mixed with a gnome Viking. Well, you have seen me in person, Shizzle, so you know.
All right, cats. It's 2 hours.
Yeah.
Greg's got a pet mouse in his pocket.
Wow, what a great show! Great guest.
Gandalf Tarrington.
Great chat. Chat was very busy. I'll tell you what, without Chad's help, highlighting some stuff, man, it took me a while to get caught up. So
I had to write them down. I couldn't highlight them for you, so I started writing them down.
wow. So Humpty Dumpty with a beard. Humpty Dumpty with a beard.
Hey, that was the Eggman. Remember when we had the Eggman drawing of him?
Oh, I still got him.
Greg says Gandalf Tarrington.
Leprechaun. Skin Quando.
We got to get Skin back on here.
Well, there's a lot of people we get back on eventually. Yeah, for sure. And there's Wendell Mosley. He's been kind of hiding lately, right?
He's been in here all night.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. He was messaging in here and messaging me, make sure I didn't miss that one message. I was like,
I saw that.
calm down and we'll get to it. I just hated to cut him off or interrupt him.
And yes,
right.
I was not eating on the show tonight. I managed to do that before.
I tried, but I didn't make it in time. So
I grabbed a rotisserie chicken from the grocery store and a big thing of potato salad. So I was scarfing that down prior to this.
Egg with no legs.
I remember that. Egg with no legs. Poor Jeff.
Cracker tea, egg with no legs.
Yep.
All sorts of the bunyip.
Egg on legs.
Yeah, egg on legs.
Yeah, egg on legs. That's it. All right, guys, gals. Thank you. We'll see you next Tuesday.
Yeah, Greg and Misty, you doing a night owl soon?
How about a Beards and Boogers?
We do need to do a Beards and Buggers.
I'll do one sometime. I do, I had a question Catherine asked about the ghost show with Cindy and
The gang.
a few others.
Wendell says we need to move some Gugway to Jerry's house.
No Gugways are welcome here, please.
Greg doesn't know. No, I did not eat the chicken driving home. I had too much stuff in the truck, and I was trying to get back to the house.
So, but anyway, all right. Thank you, everybody. See you next
Shizzle,
week.
I will look those up again. I can't remember if I sent them or not.
I think we may be able to go at 8:00 next week. I don't think she's got a
just
12-hour shift next week, so
Yep.
we'll see.
Cool.
Did you take care of Shiz's comment there, Jeff?
Yeah, he just said.
Yeah. I got them. I'll send them to you guys.
For once I didn't hear him. Anyway.
I'll go look them up in my messages.
All right, guys and gals. We
Yep.
love you all, man. Thank you for being here.
Big love, everybody.
Absolutely big love. We'll see you next Tuesday, right?
I'm still ordering presents, Rex. I haven't got them all in yet.
We'll see you Sunday too. Make sure you all
Yes.
show up.
Yes. What do you got Sunday for us, Blackie?
Don't know. Erica's got this one, so she hasn't come up with what she wants. She's got an idea, so
Okay.
It'll have to do with probably something we were talking about this past Sunday on probably like pharma, something conspiratorial.
And there's Michael X came in right at the end.
Stirring
Yeah.
the pot. Stirring the
Well,
pot.
our show, I had more likes this week than I did 2 weeks ago when we had a big show or a better show, and we're not getting any likes. I think they're throttling last week's.
Could be.
I mean, a lot of stuff.
I'm sorry. I noticed on my other channel that my subscriptions went down. And I'm
Really?
like, I'm watching the amount of hits that's been coming in, and when you start getting a lot of hits coming in, those subscriptions go up. Mine were going down, and that's BS. I watch that stuff because it happens. It's true. It does happen. Anyway. I don't want
I'll
to get
stay quiet.
What'd you say?
All
Jim?
right.
Come on, Jeff, spit it out so we can go.
I'm looking at something I'm gonna order for the kid.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Big
All right.
love, everybody.
Yep, big love. See y'all next week. Hopefully about 8 p.m., 8:15 p.m. We'll even try to start on time next week. So, see. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.